Hi everyone, Rebecca Taylor here, and today I want to talk about 7 rules for handling criticism of your work. So this is something that's going to come up for every writer. There is no escaping criticism. There is no avoiding criticism. It is going to happen, and it's going to happen throughout your career. So whether you're part of a critique group or sharing your work for the first time, or you're part of an MFA program, maybe your book is publishing for the first time and it's going out into the world, it's going to get criticized, and that criticism is most likely going to sting. So I do think that it's something that you can learn to manage as a writer. I do think criticism can be difficult, particularly when you first are putting your work out there. And I actually think it's a benefit that I was a part of a writers group for many years before I published my first book, because it taught me a lot about accepting criticism and how to go about doing it, so that when I got to the point where I was putting my work out into the world, I was no stranger to it. And, there's, of course, it's lovely, the praise and the wonderful things that people say about your book, but there are going to be people that don't like it, and they are going to write reviews about it. And I think as a writer, you need to be well equipped with regards to, but handling that, how are you going to face that? So my very first rule for handling criticism is don't take it personally. It's a book, and I think when it's your first book, there's a lot of there's probably a lot more emotion, your sense of self. I think it can feel very personal when somebody criticizes that first book that you've put out into the world. And so I think however you can get there or go about doing it, it would be to your benefit once the book is complete, once it's out into the world, to try to disentangle your ego, if you will, from that book. I think it will serve you, and be able to just kind of, take the praise and be, hey, thanks, and take the criticism and be like, hey, sorry, that wasn't for you. But to do it in a way that is emotionally detached, so that you're not personally getting bruised over your book taking its licks out into the world. So I do think it's very important to not take criticism of your work as criticism of you. And I do think that that's something to be learned over time. So my number 2 rule is don't react publicly to criticism of your book. If you want to scream into your pillow, if you want to rant to your spouse or significant other about, the stupidity of this person that just doesn't get you or get your work kind of thing, that's fine. I mean, do that as much as they're willing to listen to you to do that. But if at all possible, and it needs to be possible, don't react publicly to criticism of your work. I just think it looks unprofessional. We live in a world now where every reader can voice their thoughts in a very public forum, because of course we have Goodreads and rating systems on like Amazon and Barnes and Noble and everywhere. Really, there's no escaping it anymore. And so I think it really sort of reflects badly on the author when they go onto those sites and try to defend their book, or try to say how this reviewer is wrong, or they're missing the point. It just never works out well for the author, almost ever. I would not go on Twitter and complain about people personally about bad reviews. I think you just sort of realize that once your book is out there, the relationship then is between your book and the reader, and the reader is going to have their opinions about it, good, bad, and ugly. But that's between your book and the reader. I don't think it's really for you to kind of to interject into that relationship at that point. So I just don't think it works out for authors very well when they react publicly to criticism or negative reviews. So my third rule for handling criticism is do check to see if there is a takeaway in the criticism. And this is really valuable if you're part of a critique group for sure, or just even you have a one-on-one partnership with another writer and you share work and that sort of thing. And especially if you're in one of those relationships when people have taken the time to read your work and offer feedback on it, I really kind of think the only response that's appropriate at that point is thank you. Thank you for taking the time to help me try to improve my craft or make my work better. I think getting defensive, and in fact, most critique groups I've belonged to in the past, they have rules about, when it's your turn to sit and listen to what everyone has to say about your book. Your one job is to sit there and take it. You take it and you take notes, and that's it. Like, these people have done you the favor of reading your work and telling you ways that they think you could make it better. You don't have to take that advice. You don't have to think that they're right. You could think they're crazy. You can have all the sort of yucky feelings about, them not understanding it as much as you want to, but it really is just, I think, for you to just kind of sit and listen and absorb it. And it would probably be in your best interest to see if is there something that's within this critique that is valuable, and can I use it to make my work better? And I would say this is true too, even once you're published and your book is out there and readers are having reactions to your book. Now, I tend to not pay too much. Well, I don't read a lot of my online reviews. Sometimes I'll go on. But if I get kind of a whiff that there is a common thread, like there's kind of one or two things that a lot of people are having a problem with, I might investigate that a little bit more and just sort of, see, like, is there value in this? Is there something I can take away and apply to, maybe my next book? Or, was this just kind of one-off because it was a very specific thing about this particular book? And so, whatever it is, what it is at that point kind of thing. But I do think it's worth just sort of seeing, is there some tidbit of information that would be valuable for me to apply to my practices in my craft, to improving my craft or my next book? And if not, then that takes me on to my fourth rule, which is let it go and move on. I don't think it does us any good to dwell and perseverate and just kind of stew about criticism that we do not find valuable. As long as we're being honest with ourselves and that there's really no value in it, and it's not just that our ego got bruised, because we sort of opened ourselves up in this public way, which is what we do as writers when we put our work out there. But if they're really truly, you've investigated, you've been honest with yourself, and there isn't a takeaway from it, let it go and move on. So rule number 5 now, if this feels impossible, if you just find that, you keep coming back and rereading this person's review for whatever reason, it just feels impossible to let it go, and you're really stewing on it, and it's keeping you up at night, and you're just like so frustrated and angry about it. I think at that point, it's probably time to investigate, why is this critique or this criticism or this bad review bothering you so much? Like, what is it? Because I think then it's probably tapping into something else. Like, something's kind of, going on with other feelings. And so I would investigate, is it just that it's incredibly embarrassing for you? Like, are you feeling incredibly embarrassed because you got this 1-star review or 2-star review or 3-star review or whatever it is, and the things that these people said about the book? And in which case, if that's the case, if you're embarrassed by that kind of thing, then you might want to consider doing a lot more work on building up that thicker skin or that kind of protective layer, because there's going to be a lot of that in this career field. There's a lot of putting yourself out there, and people have not great opinions about it. And, to me, the best cure for that is go find a book that you personally know is stellar, is amazing. It's one of your favorite books you ever read. And then go look at all the 1-star reviews for that book. And that right there should just tell you that it's a part of this business, and it's something to kind of just get used to. It is what it is. There's no changing it. So if you're getting really, really embarrassed by getting lower reviews or critique, then I think that there's some internal work that could be done there in terms of just maybe isolating and protecting yourself a little bit better from that. Another thing why, you might investigate, is it that it touches on something that you feel really insecure about? So I'm trying to think of what an example of that would be, but did it really just kind of hit a nerve with you personally, their critique or their review kind of thing? Is that why you can't let it go? And that the reason why you're so like stewed up about it is because it's really bringing up some like psychological stuff for you. And I think that should be investigated if that's the case. Or is it just that, the critique really is unfair, it's unjust, or it's just plain crazy? Because for sure those exist, right? Like you might get a bad review for your work and it's like, did they even read the book? Like or they'll say, they didn't read it at all, or they did not finish, or, all these kind of things. Or is it, they just completely missed the point and that's what they're, complaining about or whatever. And, those are good. I will say those are going to happen, sort of thing. But if it is just that, this person is wrong and they're wrong in, all the ways, just terribly wrong. So I think in that case, it would be good to identify exactly why it's bothering you so much. You should get some paper out and a pen, and you should write a scathing letter to this reviewer, and you should really spell out all your thoughts, all your feelings, exactly what you think of them. Write it all down on this piece of paper. And then you should fold it up. You should put it in an envelope. You should address it. And I would not recommend tracking this person down and getting their home address. You could just, write any address on it, put a stamp on it, then get a large bowl or a pot from your kitchen and a lighter. Go outside where there's lots of fresh air. Put your scathing letter that's addressed and stamped and ready to go into that pot, and you should light it on fire and burn it. And then you should go back and review rule number 4, which is let it go and move on. So sometimes you do just need to really get out your feelings about something. But like I said, don't react publicly, and you really do need to kind of let it go and move on, because the only person suffering in that whole dynamic is you. So you've let it go, you're going to move on. And then of course, my rule number 7 is write your next book and realize you're never, ever, 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 ever going to please everyone. And that is the nature of what we do. And if you're going into this hoping that it's going to be nothing but, yay, you're amazing, and I can't believe this book has just changed my life, and 5-star review, 5-star review, those are lovely and they're great. And of course we love to get them. But that's not the reality of what this career path that we're on. You're not going to make everyone happy. And so I think that when it comes to criticism, learning how to take it, use it if it's useful, or let it go and move on is a huge part of becoming a writer and being a writer and having your work out there in the world. Well, that's all I have for today. If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a like and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more of these videos in the future. Thanks.